So, section 3, we're going to be talking about elimination today. So this is the last method that we're going to be using to solve systems of equations. And I'll go ahead and tell you, so graphing is probably the one that you're going to use the least. Graphing is really nice for like introducing stuff because we can visualize it. But if you don't have a graph paper in front of you, it's not very useful. Also, if you're dealing with any kind of fractions or decimals, graphing isn't very useful either. So most of the time, you're either going to use substitution or elimination. And which one, you can use either of those all the time, but sometimes one's going to be easier or like more convenient to use than the other. So it just kind of depends on the problem. Today we're going to be doing all elimination though. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and start with an example. So with elimination, first thing that you want to do is make sure, which in this case it is, but first thing you want to do is make sure that all of our variables are lined up. So like my x's are lined up vertically, my y's are lined up vertically, and then the numbers are lined up vertically. So this one's good to go. And the idea with elimination is I want to cancel out a variable. That's where the name comes from, elimination, right? You're trying to get rid of something by adding or subtracting. You can add or subtract the two equations, okay, in order to try to cancel something out. In order to do that, you need one of your variables to have the same or opposite coefficients, okay, the numbers in front. So in this case, we have a negative 2x and a positive 2x. So in order to cancel those out, and you've got to decide whether I have to add or subtract. Okay. If they are opposites, you're always going to add. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0, so that's how they cancel out. So I would write the plus sign out to the side where you make it really clear so you can see that. Because I'm going to add all of these terms together. Now when I add negative 2 plus 2, those cancel out. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. And then I add everything else. So I'm adding here, so 3 plus, this is like a negative 1. So this is 2y. And then I add here as well, 4 plus negative 8.
Negative 4.
Is negative 4. Okay. Now, again, I got rid of one variable, so I've only got a y, so I can solve for y now. So just divide by 2.
Negative 2.
Okay. So that's part of my answer. Yep. So even though I've got y equals negative 2, now I have to plug it back in to solve for x, and I can plug it back into either equation. Okay. It doesn't matter. So do you guys want to plug it into the top or bottom? Okay. So if I plug it in here, I'm still going to put that as like a negative 1 times I'm plugging in negative 2. Okay. And then you're just going to solve for x.
Add, subtract 2.
Subtract 2. And then, just like before, make sure we write our answers as an ordered pair. Oops, not negative 5x. Negative 5. Negative 2. Okay. And just like what we were talking about there on the last homework assignment, I can check my answer by plugging it in, but notice how I used this equation to get the negative 5. Right? So if I plug those into here, it's automatically going to work. That's how I got my answer. So I would, recommend just plugging it into the top one or both. But yeah, if I plug it into the top one, -5 times -2 is +10, and then 3 times -2 is -6, and that's going to work.
4 equals 4.
So same idea here. I need to add or subtract to cancel out a variable, and in order to cancel it out, I'm always going to have the same or opposite coefficient, right? So like the x's here, I'm not going to be able to cancel by adding or subtracting. It's not going to do me any good.
No.
But if I look at the y's, we got 6y and then 6y. Okay. Now, is adding those together going to do me any good?
No, because it's just going to make 12y.
Right. So any time that you have the same signs, you need to subtract. Okay. Even if this was -6y and -6, for some reason that tends to confuse people more, you would still need to subtract. Okay. So I'm going to put minus sign out here. So -20 minus 5.
-25.
-25x. And if I take 6 minus 6, those cancel out.
And you get +25.
Be careful here because I'm taking 2 minus a negative, which becomes adding.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
How is
So
that? How is that?
anytime you subtract a negative, it's the same as adding. Okay. The negatives or the minus and negative cancels, it becomes like adding. So now just solve for x. And I should get -1. Is everybody all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I need to plug it in, and you guys can choose whether you want to plug it into the bottom equation or the top one. Doesn't matter.
Bottom.
You want to plug it in here?
Yeah.
Okay. So 5 times -1.
-5.
So this is -5. Okay. So to cancel out the -5, I need to add 5 to both sides. And then divide by 6. Okay. And then just write your answer as an ordered pair. Okay. And then if I wanted to check it, since I used that bottom equation, I would probably plug it into the top one. So -20 times -1,
20.
+20.
Minus.
And then 6 times -3 is going to be -18.
Yeah, 2.
And that works. Okay. Okay. So, what do you guys notice on this one?
They're not lined up. Backwards.
Stuff's not lined up. So if that's the case, then you just need to rearrange however you need to line up all the variables. A lot of times people want to put it as x, then y, your equals, and then the number. You can do that, that's fine. But notice how you can actually just take this equation and flip it around, and that'll work. Okay, so let's just do that. I'm going to rewrite my equations down here. So I'm going to put the top one, and then I'm going to flip this one around. Okay. And then what variable here am I going to try to cancel?
The x.
Yeah, the x. These are the ones that are the same. Okay. So do I need to add or subtract?
Subtract.
Okay. So 6 minus 6.
Cancels out.
Okay. Now, be careful here.
You have to have a 0.
Yeah, I need something on this side of the equal sign. So if they cancel out, what is that? 6 minus 6 is 0.
77.
And then I keep subtract. Now be careful because I still have to subtract over here. I'm just subtracting a negative. Okay, so you're gonna have to be careful there. So -4 minus a negative, that's like plus 5.
1y.
So yeah, -4 plus 5 is a positive 1y. And then the same thing here, -4 minus a negative, so that's plus 2.
-2. And then you gotta move the 2.
Now I just have to solve for y. Is everybody good with this part? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to get rid of the 1 because it's not necessary. Add the 2. And I've got y. So now I need to plug it back in. And I'm going to tell you guys, when you go to plug this back in, I can plug it back in anywhere for y. So I can plug it in there. I could plug it in there. Or I could even go back to the original equation and plug it in there. It doesn't matter. Just pick whichever one you think is going to be easiest. Okay? So I'm going to go with this one. Okay? So 6x equals -5 times 2. And that's going to be -10 minus 2, which is -12. And then just divide. Okay. And then we just write our answer as an ordered pair. All right, so you guys notice how on the first 3 problems there was always a variable that had the exact same coefficient or opposite, right?
Yeah.
Very convenient, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not always going to happen. So if I don't have things lined up to where I can just cancel it out by adding or subtracting, I guess I just can't do it?
No, you can.
Okay.
You have to
So-
divide the.
What you have to do on a problem like this, if you don't have something to where you can already add or subtract, you can multiply one or both of the equations by a number to make that happen. So you're basically looking for the least common multiple. And you can pick. I could do it for the y's. If I look at the y's, I can. These will both go into 10, right? Okay. If I look at these, they will both go into 12. Okay. Now, I'll give you guys another tip. You can do it either way. Okay, and you can set it up so that you either add them together or you can set it up so that you can subtract. Either is fine. Most of the time, it is easier for us to add than subtract, right? Especially when you get into the negatives. Minus and negative gets confusing. I can do it, but if I had my choice, I would rather add. Okay. So if that's the case, you want to set it up so that you have opposite numbers, not the same numbers. Okay. So if I look at this problem, I would look at this and say, okay, I want to deal with these and have opposites. So what's the least common multiple of 4 and 3? 12. So I have to multiply this by a 3. And you have to multiply the entire equation. That's the only way we get to do that is if I multiply both sides by the same thing.
How would we multiply by 3?
Because I'm trying to make this a 12x.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to multiply the bottom equation by 4 to make this a negative 12x. Basically, I'm going to set it up to where this is going to be like one of the previous problems. Okay. So now I'm going to have to rewrite these. So if I look at the top equation, multiply all that by 3. And the biggest mistake that I see on this whole section is people multiply this and they multiply this, and then they'll write 3 and forget to multiply that. Okay? Make sure you multiply the entire equation. Then we do the same thing for the bottom one. So if I multiply by 4, and 38 times 4, 152.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also give you another hint. If there was not a negative here already, you can multiply by a negative if you want to flip the sign. Okay. Sometimes that may be to your advantage. Okay. So do I add or subtract now? Add. So 12 plus negative 12
Nothing.
cancels out. 15 plus 8.
24.
23.
3.
Okay. And then 9 plus 152.
161.
Okay.
9.
And now I just need to divide. Back to this. Okay. I know. Crazy. We should get y equals 7. Okay. And you guys can use a calculator. That's fine. I'll be disappointed, but
Strictly in my head.
I'll allow it. Okay, we need to plug this back in to get x.
Do we do it in the new one or the old one?
You can pick either, anywhere for y. So I can plug it in there, or actually, since we multiplied these are going to be bigger numbers. It will be easier to plug it into the original.
Yep.
So we
Go
can
with the
put
top
it
one.
into either since
Yes.
we didn't pick one.
Yep, because these equations are equivalent to these. Okay, so I'd plug it into the top one actually. So 4x, and then I'm going to go ahead and multiply 5 times 7 is
35. Subtract 35 on both sides. Divide by 4. X equals negative 8.
okay. So we have our final answer is negative 8.7. You guys can check that. I'm not going to go ahead and check it right now for the sake of time.
Our last one, we have one.
Let's continue. So, if I look at this, basically I need to figure out what is going to be easiest. I need to get one of my variables to have the same coefficients. So, and you can usually do it either way.
Take the bottom one.
You want to make the x's or the y's be the
Y's.
same?
Y's.
Okay, notice if I look at my x's, I'd have to get 6, so I have to change both equations.
Big number.
With the y, I can just multiply this by 4, and I don't have to do anything with the top one. Okay? Now, that being said, I want to add. You guys don't have to, but it's going to be easier. So I actually want this to be a positive 4, right?
So you're going to times it by negative.
I'm going to multiply by a negative 4. Now, you don't have to do that. It's just going to make things a little easier. Okay? So now I'm going to rewrite them, and I'm going to rewrite both equations because that's going to make it simpler. So then I rewrite the second one. Okay. And now if I have negative 4 and positive 4, do I need to add or subtract?
Add.
Okay.
Addition.
So add everything.
Negative 5x. Cancels out.
Add negative 4, positive 4, cancels.
Negative 5. Divide by.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yep, that's what I had.
All right. Then divide, and we should get x equals.
Can you put 1 for one of your equations?
All right, so then I need to plug 1 in for x somewhere. Doesn't matter where.
Second one on the second bottom. Yeah.
Right here?
I did the bottom
Yeah.
one.
Okay. So 2 times 1 is just 2. Minus 1y equals 3. Be careful when you're solving for a variable that has a minus in front of it. A lot of people have been dropping that. Again, it's helpful to have that 1 there. So here, I need to subtract 2 from both sides. And then this is still a negative 1y. Don't lose that. That's what I've seen a lot of people doing. And then divide. And we get y equals negative 1. Okay. And that's it. I'm going to do one practice problem that I'm going to go around and check, and then you guys will get